This is the sound of your ride home with Dad after he caught you vaping. Awkward, isn't it? Most vapes contain seriously addictive levels of nicotine and disappointment. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
Hello, fellow gamers, and welcome to the Video Gamers Podcast. Today, we're going to solve one of the great mysteries of 2024. No, not why Ryan is always late to things. It's whether or not Star Wars Outlaws is a good video game or not. We've been playing it for the last 2 weeks, and it's time to see what this game is all about. But first, some introductions are in order. I am the Dark Lord of the Sith. I mean your host, Josh. And joining me, he's best friends with Jar Jar Binks and claims he's the leader of the Jawas. And he kind of looks like one. It's Ryan.
Oh, gosh. Listen, it's not my fault I'm late to things. I'm a scruffy-headed nerf herder, all right?
All right, that's fair. That's a good answer.
But I will say that's very, very on topic because this morning I went to the gun range. I was 2 or 3 minutes late. I was late to help Paul today with some stuff he had going on, and then I may have been a couple minutes late to recording, so... You know,
wonder why that made its way into the intro.
Time is a man-made construct, brother. It's all relative.
Hey, you know what? If that's the worst thing about you is that you're late every now and then, I can live with that, Ryan. So, Ryan, here we are. 2 weeks ago, we did what we call a pre-dive where we announced the game that we're going to be playing.
Yes.
And we have been playing it for the last couple weeks. I want to start off by saying that this episode is a huge thank you to our MYTHIC supporter Disratory, because he basically said, I know you guys were planning on playing Star Wars Outlaws, and then we ran out of time, and he said, I'm going to make you guys play it as my pick.
You have no choice.
Yeah, and we said, okay, well, you know what? We don't have a choice. And so you and I both dove right into Star Wars Outlaws. We have not shared anything with each other.
Not at all.
About this game. I have no idea what you think about Star Wars Outlaws. You have no idea what I think about Star Wars Outlaws, and I freaking love that.
Yeah.
Because we're going to find out live with the listeners on what we think about this game. You know, I mentioned it at the intro. This game is, I will say, it's been very heavily talked about with the critic reviews and people saying, oh, this game sucks. You know, it's just Ubisoft and it's bad. And then other people saying, did you even play it? Because I played it and it's freaking great.
Yeah, very up and down. Very much.
Right. And so we're going to solve that today. At least I think, unless we have different opinions on this, and then we're just going to complicate things even more.
Oh, I love it. I hope so.
Yeah. But before we get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, we do have a little bit of housekeeping that we need to take care of. First of all is a huge thank you and shout out to a new supporter of the podcast who signed up with rare status, whose name is Obtain Reality.
Yeah.
So thank you, Obtain Reality, for supporting the show.
Woo! Thank you.
Heck yeah. Also joined our Discord server and has been chatting it up with people.
Super active. Love it.
Also, the Discord server been hopping.
Blew up. We're
Is
cruising.
that because we're giving a game away at the end of this episode, Ryan?
No, it's just because they love us, but maybe a little bit because we're giving a game away.
We are giving away a copy of Star Wars Outlaws at the end of this episode for anybody that is in our Discord server. We're going to pick somebody randomly to give a game away to, and you're getting a copy at that point. So we talked about this on our pre-dive episode, and here we are, and we are men of our words. So at the end of this episode, somebody is getting a copy of Star Wars Outlaws as well. And then, Ryan, one other piece of housekeeping is... You know, we'd love it when people leave us reviews.
That was the best.
You read every single review that comes in, don't you?
I read all the reviews, and then I even go and I look on Spotify comments. It's one of those things that it's kind of that fulfillment where you're like, all right, people do like us. People do listen to us. This is cool.
That I love seeing that somebody's like, I listen to you guys on my way to work. You make my commute better, that sort of stuff.
For sure.
Honestly, it's one of the reasons we do this is just to say, hey, we want this gaming community. We want to chat video games, and to know that there's people out there like the people that are listening to this right now that actually enjoy this is crazy to us, but we love it. And honestly, one of the things you can do is leave a review for us. There's a good chance that we'll read it on the show, like this one that we're going to read right now that comes in from Hampton Gamer. It's titled Best Pod, and it says, I was checking out gaming podcasts and listening to a couple minutes of 4 different podcasts, but when I listened to this one, I got hooked, and I'm saving up to buy the subscriptions for your show.
Nice.
Now, number 1, thank you for the review. Number 2, dude, saving up so you can help support the show? What a champion,
I
man.
know, right?
That is incredible, man. So thank you, Hampton Gamer, for leaving that review for us. If you haven't taken the time to leave us a review, please take a second to do that. Ryan, you mentioned it. If you listen on Spotify, you can rate us 5 stars.
And on Spotify, my goal, it's the path to 1,000, okay? We're at 960 right now for these reviews.
Oh my goodness.
I want to get to 1,000. So if you listen to us, you haven't left a review, it just takes literally a few seconds. You hop in there, scroll down a little bit, and you could just hit that 5 stars. It would really mean a lot to us. But I want to get to 1,000 to at an unhealthy level. So please help my health. It's for my health, people.
It's a pretty major milestone to be like, hey, we're an independent podcast. We have always said we are just gamers. We're not experts. We don't have a huge gaming website that is backing us or is saying, hey, let's make a podcast. We're not celebrities that are like, oh, well, we instantly have 2 million people that are going to listen to this.
Yeah.
We have built this up over the years by just being true, genuine gamers that love video games, and we don't pretend to be experts.
Yes.
We talk about games like you do with your friends. That's what the show is all about. We love that you're here with us. Ryan, let's get into it, man.
Let's do it.
All right. Let's talk about some Star Wars Outlaws on this. Okay. I know we touched on some of this in our pre-dive episode, but I know that there's people that are listening to this that maybe didn't listen to that episode. So what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about some of the issues that Star Wars Outlaws faced. And, this is kind of plays into why Disratory picked this game for us to play.
Yes.
Okay, so to kind of set the stage for people, Ryan, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the kind of ups and downs and why this game's been kind of controversial with people? You know what I mean? As far as like, there's people that say this game sucks. There's people that say, no, dude, this game's awesome. Have you played it? Like, that's literally what Disratory has said is, have you played it? Well, we said no. And so now we've played it. So Ryan,
we want to
run us through some of the kind of ups and downs about this and why this game's been a little bit controversial.
I think there's been a lot of, obviously Ubisoft has their, issues as it is and how things go with what they're doing and the trend on how they release these games. So we already have that there. That's, big elephant in the room that everybody sees. A few issues is just, what is the depth of this game? What are we looking at for a Star Wars entity in itself? Because if you have, if you know any fan base or any sort of group of people that are very protective of what they love, it's Star Wars fans. So they know the lore, they know what's going on, they know if you're being true to the game, true to the genre, true to the essence of what Star Wars is in that realm, in that universe. So that was the big thing is this really kind of true to that, and does it ring home and bring home what makes Star Wars? So a lot of controversy between that. If how are these characters playing out? Is this really what it should be? Is this what would happen in this universe? What is the combat like? What are the cinematics gonna do? There was just so much depth or lack thereof that people were almost just polar opposites of that blew me away. And I know you were talking about it too, to where you didn't know what to make of this game. You couldn't throw heads or tails because you don't know what these big, larger reviewers that cover this game, are they on the, quote unquote payroll? Are they just saying it's great just because, or are they saying it's bad just because they like to trash games? So we were really excited to dive into this to really see what kind of this all boiled down to, is this a good game? Is it bad? Is it just okay? So I'm super excited to dive in.
Yeah, I will say too that when you kind of brought up the issue about, is this Star Wars? Is it true to Star Wars?
Yeah.
And I think part of the concern there, especially with Ubisoft, right, is that did they just buy a license for this and try to capitalize on the Star Wars fans and the Star Wars name and say, hey, we made a Star Wars game, everybody buy it. Right.
Marvel.
And then it's like,
Marvel.
Right. And so I think there definitely was that. Is this just a money grab to pay for this license and try to capitalize on this? Or did you actually make a game that is representative of the Star Wars universe?
Exactly. Yeah.
Leading up to this game, we saw up and down trailers that impressed us, trailers that really put us off. The critic reviews for this game were not very good. Then we started to kind of see gamers come forward and say, dude, I don't know what everybody's talking about. I think this game's way better than people are giving it credit for. I know when we announced that we were covering this game in our Discord server, that a lot of people said, oh man, I'm so glad you guys are covering this. I don't know what to think about this game.
Yeah. Which is cool to see when you see people, one, that obviously listen, then they're coming in to say, we want to know because there has been all of this up and down. We're not sure what to think. We want to know what somebody, we trust kind of says about this game. So yeah, it's definitely, like we said, it's been crazy.
Yeah, and so we're going to break it all down. We're going to talk about it. One thing we always like to do on these is kind of break down the different aspects of the game. Our job is not to tell you what to think about a video game. Our job is to tell you about a game, and then you figure out whether you think that game sounds like it's up your alley or not. Now, we will say, I like this game, I didn't like this game, but that doesn't matter. I mean, if this game sounds like it's for you, then give it a try. I mean, that's what we do as gamers. If it sounds like, you know what, I don't think this game's for me, then maybe we saved you a little bit of money at the same time. But that's our goal, is to just kind of talk about the game itself, what makes it good, what works, what doesn't, and then you decide whether this sounds like it might be for you. Okay, Ryan, in our pre-dive, the other thing that we did is we did say, hey, we have some hopes for this game and we have some concerns for this game before we even played the first minute of it. So just recap that. Like, what was your hope for Star Wars Outlaws?
Man, for me, I wanted that, especially having kind of a semi-open world where you can traverse through and explore. I wanted to have just that, you just dive into it, where you become part of the Star Wars universe. You become a scoundrel, to where you're running through this town or this village, and there's depth to it. There's ambiance. There's so much to be distracted by, but also entertained by. So I was just hoping that that's what we were going to get, and that's what they would bring to us in a graphically beautiful setting, and something that would draw you in. That's just kind of what was my kind of main points that I wanted to hit.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think my hope was that this was not an Ubisoft game. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want the towers to climb up. I didn't want that old, tired Ubisoft formula just with a Star Wars skin on it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I kind of wanted. I wanted it to feel like Star Wars, so that it wasn't just a money grab. It wasn't just hey, let's pay for the license and then just churn out something that's Star Wars and hope that sells enough copies to make our money back, kind of thing. And then, we did also say a concern or what we thought could bring the game down. I know for me, I had mentioned that shallow gameplay or shallow mechanics would kind of be a bummer.
Yep.
I know that, going into this game, I knew there was stealth. I knew there was combat. I knew there were some vehicles. We saw trailers with space combat. You have your little weird creature Nyx thing that I didn't know how that was going to play into the game. And I remember saying, like, there's all these components, but if they're all very shallow, then is it going to feel shallow at that point? You know what I mean? And so for me, that was it. And then you said that you had a concern, which was what?
I was just hoping that there was, like I said, there's depth to this and there's depth to the environment. I know when you're going between towns or realms or whatever it is, I wanted there to be things to do, things to explore. I love to explore. I love to adventure. I do it in the real world, and I love to do it in video games. So as long as they have that to where you always find something around the next corner, that's what really takes a game to the next level for me, instead of just kind of having those barren wastelands where it's just like, okay, you got to go from here to here. We'll just throw some trees and some bushes, and then go across.
Yeah. What good is an open world if there's nothing to do in it?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
It's just a large space that now I have to spend time driving across.
Exactly.
So, all right, well, let's get into some of the gameplay stuff. We do want to take a minute to say we are intentionally leaving out the story on this game. So
no spoilers, baby.
We are not going to spoil this game. I know that is different than a lot of deep dives that we do, because a lot of times we dive into everything and we say, hey, we're just going to talk about the story. We're going to talk about the end of the game. We're going to talk about the twists and the turns and all that stuff. But this game is still fairly new, and we have seen that there are a lot of gamers that have not picked this game up because they want more information about it. They want to hear from more gamers. They want to hear from their friends that maybe, hey, you pick it up because I'm not sure if this game is good or not. And we don't want to spoil the story, because the story in this game is one of the major aspects of it. And so we are going to intentionally steer clear of that. And so for people that are like, wait a minute, you guys aren't talking about all the story points and the plot spoilers and all that. No, we're not. We're going to leave that up to you. If this game sounds like it's fun to you, if we say, hey, maybe you should pick up this game, it's better than people are saying, we don't want to spoil that experience for you at the same time. So we are going to steer clear of those. Now, I will say we will talk and touch on the story itself, but more so from a very non-spoilery aspect and just kind of how it enhances the game itself at that point. So feel free to just listen to the whole episode. We're not going to spoil things for you. And we are intentionally doing that. So I don't want, we don't want people being like, you guys didn't talk about the twist or the story or something like that. And it's like, no, you got to experience it for yourself.
You got to experience it yourself. You got to have that what moment on your own.
Exactly. So, okay, Ryan, I kind of like this trend that we've been doing, where we kind of really talk about the thing that stands out about a game the most, right? So I really like this because it's always fun to say what grabbed you. What aspect of this game stood out the best in your mind? We did this with Astrobot. We said, dude, the audio in Astrobot's phenomenal. There's nothing else like it. Space Marine 2, we said, dude, these graphics are incredible. And so for Star Wars Outlaws, I know for me, and I'm very curious if this is the same for you, and if it's not, that's fine, and we'll touch on that. But the thing that stood out to me the most is, and this is going to sound a little bit weird, but we'll dive into it a little bit, is the setting. Just the setting of this game. It's a Star Wars game.
Dude,
I can say personally, to answer this question, I do not think that this was a license this game, throw out a Star Wars game and call it done and hope that it works. I personally feel like the setting of Star Wars Outlaws is its best component on this game. Now, do you feel that way? Do you think it's something else? I mean, I know you're a Star Wars fan too, so I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
So there's a lot of things about this game that I'm super excited to talk about, but that is the one. I know I mentioned prior, like, I want depth. I want a deep, dark, gritty world to explore and to adventure through, and this delivered it tenfold. I think that there was so much. There's these little like food shops, and you see, them whipping up food, and it's some alien creature, and there's people sitting there. You can go there and get your food served up, and even that turns into a mini game. Eating your food with Nix turns into a mini game. Walking through, you just see debris, you see canisters, you see benches, you see people going into these bars and side taverns, and there was so much to the town. I don't want to say that it was overwhelming, but there was a lot. There was a lot to behold, a lot to see, a lot to explore, and I think the setting and the world that they created was so much what I was looking for. It was spot on.
It's crazy to me how much this game felt like Star Wars.
Dude, it did.
Dude, and here's the thing. Listen, I know, like, there's people that love the Jedi and the Sith and the Death Star and the Star Destroyer. I love all that stuff, man.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? But what I love about Star Wars were the alien races on Jabba's pleasure barge, or at the cantina, or the different kinds of bounty hunters and all those different races and characters and the different droids and robots and the just the interior of like an Imperial base, and things like that. Like sometimes it's not the grandeur of Star Wars that you love. It's like the everyday life. It's Luke standing on Tatooine watching 2 sunsets. And being like, just that moment of like, this dude lives on freaking Tatooine and he's just watching the sun go down. Like, that's Star Wars, man.
Yep, for sure. No.
And so I know that there were people that were like, well, this game's stupid because there's no lightsabers and there's no Jedi and there's no Sith and there's none of this and that. And it's like, yeah, but dude, this may be one of the best representations of the Star Wars universe that I have seen in a video game.
Oh, yeah. I think with the current tech and the time you can tell they went into developing this, they did such a good job on that. Like you mentioned in the Imperial bases and stuff, you see, other than like Fallen Order and Survivor, like 2 awesome games as well, the details that go into these bases, and you see the little robots running around, and then even back, in just regular villages, you're walking by and you got Imperial, stormtroopers or whatever. Let me see your papers, and they're giving somebody a hard time, and then somebody else you walk by, they're like, hey, I got a job for you. And there's just so much, and I keep using this word depth, but there it really is. There's truly that detail and that depth to the environment that makes you feel like you're a part of it. And that's what I always look for in these types of games, these action RPGs or these exploratory games, is I want to feel like I'm there without having to have like a VR headset. And that's what this did.
Yeah, it's really hard to quantify how well they nailed the feeling of just everyday life Star Wars in this game. You mentioned walking around the towns. There's broken down speeder bikes. There's guys like working on parts. You know what I mean? There's little shops. There's people standing around having conversations, and you can listen in to their conversations. They're talking about the Empire, or, their cousin just joined the Empire and they hope he's doing good. And, those dirty rebellion people that are causing problems and stuff like that. You've got aliens that are running around. You've got Jawa that are trying to sell droid parts. And I mean, this is the Star Wars universe that is like, it's like the heart and soul of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Jedi, Sith, all that stuff. That's cool. But like, I wanted to live in Star Wars, and that's what we got to do in this game. And I have to say, they absolutely freaking nailed it, in my opinion. It's just, it is top notch. And to me, it is the thing that really stood out the most as far as like, what did this game nail? What did it do right? And I think the setting, as oddly as that sounds, is like the absolute premier thing there.
Agreed.
So, all right. Well, listen, we're going to get into a little bit more, and then we'll talk about the story a little bit, but we got to take a quick break, and then we'll be right back with more Star Wars Outlaws.
So, you want to be a marketer. It's easy. You just have to score a ton of leads and figure out a way to turn them all into customers. Plus, manage a dozen channels, write 1 million blogs, and launch 100 campaigns all at once. When that's done, simply make your socials go viral and bring in record profits. No sweat. Okay, fine. It's a lot of sweat. But with HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools, launching benchmark-breaking campaigns is easier than ever. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
This episode is brought to you by CarMax. Boldly searching for your next used vehicle? With CarMax, you don't have to settle on anything when it comes to your ride. Instead, steer clear of the ordinary and buy the car that's right for you. Because CarMax makes it easy to stop settling and find a car you'll love today. Start shopping now at CarMax.com. CarMax, the way car buying should be.
All right, Ryan. We're going to move on real quick, but the other thing that I want to point out when we talk about the setting of the game is this game takes place in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So this is the Empire at the height. I mean, the absolute pinnacle of its power and its reach and its oppressiveness. We see it in this game. You touched on like the Imperial bases, and I don't want to beat the setting to death because we got a lot to cover. But one of the things that I loved about this game was when you're in a city, you feel like you're in that city, and the cities are unique. Their struggles are unique because they're on different planets. They're on different weather patterns and things like that. They have different struggles. You have factions that we'll get into a little bit later, and the Hutts are warring with the Crimson Dawn and the Pike Syndicate and stuff like that that's going down, and it's affecting the people in the city. But when you get to the Imperials, and you do a lot of Imperial
shenanigans,
missions, shenanigans,
yeah,
it feels like you're in an Imperial base.
Dude.
It's sterile, it's bright, it's just militaristic. I am just like, dude, I'm freaking crawling around in an Imperial base right now, man.
That's such a good word, sterile, because it almost is like a hospital-esque setting with these just kind of plain hallways. They all have the gray with the white, oval kind of lighting throughout, and then I don't know about you, but when I was playing and I was in those areas, you almost feel trapped. It's like, I'm not going to get out of this. There's so much to get through here. I'm not going to ever survive this. Obviously it's a game and I can restart and do the mission again, but you just feel this kind of weight on you to where you just feel trapped. How am I going to escape this? How am I going to get past all these guys? And I just thought they did that so well.
Yeah, they really did. I can't speak enough about, if you are a Star Wars fan, this game might be the most realistic Star Wars game that I think I've ever played in that regard, and I played a lot of Star Wars games too.
Yep,
and
same.
I know you have too, and it's fun to swing a lightsaber and all that, but this was really impressive with how they captured just living in the Star Wars universe. So,
and that makes it more real too, to not have, obviously, like you said, everybody loves to swing a lightsaber and use the Force. Not having those powers, not having those abilities. I can't triple, quadruple jump up to the top of this ledge. I got to find a way to crawl through a vault or climb up a tree or, do these other things to get through and get through this environment. So it just made it that more realistic.
Yeah, I was just literally about to ask you did you like that this was a more real life look at the universe? Or from a game standpoint, is it better to just give me the Force, man? let me throw my lightsaber at somebody and have these duels, and like Jedi Survivor, for instance, or Fallen Order. They're different games, and I'm not trying to say hey, tell me which one's better, but having a more real life aspect where you don't have superpowers, you don't have the Force, you don't see a single lightsaber, in this, do you like that, or did you feel like it could have been better if maybe they had thrown a little bit of that in there?
This one's a little hard for me. I mean, I love just the OP nature of a Jedi just running through and wrecking guys. But then at the end of the day, you just don't feel that sense of panic, in a lot of situations to where you're a Jedi, you can do this or that to get out of a situation or defeat the enemies. So I've always loved heist games, bounty hunter games, anything of that ilk has always been something that kind of hit that spot for me. So one of my favorite old school Star Wars games was Star Wars Bounty Hunter, and I love just cruising through, and you're not a Jedi, you're not one with all these powers, and you have to go through with a blaster and a jetpack. So I love the essence of just the realness, and you're just a regular person trying to survive, trying to make your way through this world. So I would obviously, I think I would prefer to have the Jedi powers in a game, but that's not to take away from what they did in this game. So they're pretty close. I'm always going to probably go with just having fun like a Jedi and destroying. I love destruction and blowing stuff up. So that's what I'm going to go with. But I don't want to take away from what this was and how it made you feel trying to get through and trying to, survive.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I mean, from a game standpoint, give me lightsabers, give me Star Destroyers and that kind of stuff, because it's a spectacle and it's awe-inspiring and all that. But in defense of Star Wars Outlaws, this is not what this game is about. It's not intended to be that, and it works very well for what they intended. You know what I mean? So for anybody that's like, well, I don't want to play because it's not Jedi and lightsabers, it's okay. This game is intentionally not that, and it still works without it, because it's telling a story of somebody that doesn't have those powers, and like you said, is just trying to make their way in this world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Apart from everything that's going on around them, and saying, hey, forget all that stuff. I'm me. This is my life. and I'm trying to
Yeah.
just figure out how to survive with it. So it's not a distraction. I didn't feel like the game was missing something in that regard, sure, yes, I want to swing lightsabers and I want to throw them around. And it's funny because it's like, oh, only 4 stormtroopers, force push. Where in this game, you're like, oh no, there's 4 stormtroopers. Like, like I better crouch behind these crates, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
So, all right. So Ryan, we said we're not going to spoil the story. And so we're going to make this part a little short because there's really not much we can cover without getting into spoilers on it. But we do have to talk about the story kind of as a whole. So Ryan, I kind of want you just give us a top level breakdown of what is this game? Like, what's the story? Give me the kind of, mile down view of, you're playing this person, K-Vess, she's a thief. She's a bounty hunter. Like, what the heck is she? Like, give me just the quick rundown of the story on this game and kind of what the point of the game itself is.
Yeah, sure. So basically you're K-Vess, you got your little companion Nyx, and you're just a scoundrel. You're trying to ultimately you're trying to get rich, put a crew together and pull off some heists and get kind of out from under the thumb of all your oppressors. You are just, again, like I said earlier, you're trying to survive. You are trying to make your way through, and it's just one issue after another, one hiccup after another, kind of like real life. Something always goes wrong, so there's always a next step, a next hurdle to get through. So as you progress through the game, you're just kind of figuring out ways to get through there, upgrade yourself, your crew, everything you have, and kind of get under, like I said, or out from under the thumb of your oppressors.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say I wasn't really 100% sure going into this game, like what the plot of the game was, what the story was. I did know that you're K-Vess, that you're kind of I think you said it perfectly. You're a scoundrel. You're not a bounty hunter. You're not somebody with like superpowers. You're just good at crime.
Yeah.
You're
good at thievery, good at sneaking around.
You're good at stealing stuff. You're good at kind of sweet talking people, and you're good at getting in and out of places. Like, honestly, like that's kind of what your shtick is. And she's very good at it, And so that is kind of the premise. And like you said, this game focuses on her story. I will say that, as you try to make a name for yourself, you come across the different factions in the game, which we'll talk about a little bit later, because that's a big part of the game is the different factions and the crime syndicates and who you can work for and who you can tick off and stuff like that. But ultimately, this game is kind of like Ocean's 11, dude. And it's not really a spoiler, but you ultimately wind up kind of making a name for yourself, putting together a crew, getting a job, that's a big, important job that you have to pull off. And this game is about whether you can pull that off or not and what the ramifications of that are. Did you feel like the story added anything to the game? Did it distract you? Was it just enough to kind of make you understand why you were doing what you were doing? Like, what are your overall thoughts on the story itself?
I think it was fair. I think it was kind of enough to hold up the gameplay and the game itself. It didn't blow me away. It wasn't anything that was next level or anything that you have to play this because of the story type situation. But I did think that it was good. It kept you invested, and then the setting and the gameplay kind of held up the rest. So I thought the storyline itself was very fair. There's lots of issues where you're still, oh man, is she going to get out of this? Or, oh, is this going to, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? What are these people going to think of me now when I run this situation or that situation? So yeah, there was a lot to it. Like you said, with the different syndicates and everything, there's a lot that kind of goes into the mold. But yeah, I think the story overall was very fair. It was a kind of fair representation of kind of what the game could be.
I'm with you on that. I think the story kind of gave me enough to say, why am I doing what I'm doing? I will say it's probably not great in my opinion. Yeah. It is adequate, and that's probably enough, in this case. Yeah. Like, there's some pretty big kind of like plot holes, like, oh, why does this person trust me so much all of a sudden that they're going to give me this top secret mission to run and they just met me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or something like that. So there's a little bit of like suspension of disbelief that needs to happen. So as long as you don't go around like picking the story apart, I think it's fine. But this is not really much to write home about, in my opinion, either. It's not like it's, one of these top games where it's like, I'm always going to remember the story, and the outcome and the choices that I had to make and stuff like that. So, there's a reason we kind of separated the setting of the game and the story of the game.
Yeah,
because it's
exactly.
like the setting's really good and the story's kind of like, okay.
Well, I mean, like think about Helldivers 2. They're like, hey, bugs and robots are attacking these worlds. Go kill them. We're like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, charge!
Charge! That's the story for liberty. You know, so that's all you get, and amazing game. So good story does not a game make or whatever. So it was definitely, like you said. I think it was very fair. I think it kept you on pace and on topic on what you were doing. You knew where you were supposed to go. But it was definitely not anything to write home about.
Yeah, I agree completely. All right, Ryan, let's get into the meat and potatoes of any game, and that's the gameplay.
Yep.
All right, and so I think this is where we're going to spend a little bit of time here because this game actually has a lot of different elements to it. And while we don't want to beat this into the ground and turn this into a 2-hour episode, I do think we need to touch on a few of those because this game it tries to do a lot. In a lot of different things, which, is kind of classic Ubisoft type game. But at the same time, I think it accomplishes some things and maybe whiffs a little bit in some other areas. And I want to be able to talk about some of that stuff. So, and I also think that this is probably where if people had issues with the game, I think this is probably where they're going to say, hey, I had issues, as far as that goes. So, let's just start with one of the major gameplay elements, and that's stealth. Okay, in this game, you are a thief, you are a scoundrel, you are sneaking into places, you are trying to rob people, you're trying to get things that people don't want you to have or steal things from people because somebody else wants it. We mentioned that, you do a lot of work for these different crime syndicates. And, the first word in crime syndicate is crime.
Yeah.
So, you're doing a lot of crimes out there.
A lot of crimes, a lot of thievery.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that going on, and associated with that is stealth. And I do remember when this game came out that a lot of people kind of complained about the stealth. And they said, dude, there's too much stealth in this game. It's not very stealthy-ish. Like this is not like Splinter Cell, kind of thing. And a lot of people felt like the stealth just didn't work and the game had too much of it and it wasn't very in depth or any of that stuff. So it is a large portion of the game. I mean, I will say that I was sneaking around an awful lot. And I have always said I don't want to play a full stealth game. That's not really up my alley, but I do like being stealthy occasionally because I think it adds like another depth to gameplay in a way that you can kind of approach something. And I like that kind of freedom of choice. So
sure. Yeah.
What did you think about the stealth in this game? I mean, there's a lot of it, right? In your opinion.
Yeah.
And so did you like the stealth aspect? Did you feel like there was too much of it? What worked for you? What maybe didn't work for you in that regard? But kind of, what do you think about that part of it?
So to me, this is exactly where Disratory, who's the reason we're playing this game, made a statement saying this was Uncharted 4 and Star Wars. And that's what really kind of hit our sensors up to the roof. And when I played this, that's where it really brought home to me. It was that element of enough stealth where you get to have fun crawling through the high grass. You get those yellow markers where somebody may see you, but you're not alerted yet. Red, means they're alerted, obviously. But you have that stealth to where you can go to an area, you can go blast it to Kingdom Come if you want, but if it's that thing where it's so satisfying to be able to distract him over here, take out that guy, go around, take out the next one, boom, set off the explosion, take off that one because the explosion hit him and you can hit this other one. So I think it was just that right amount for me personally that I loved it because it had so many of those traits that like Uncharted or like the new reboot on Tomb Raider, a lot of these games have to where you can go in stealth, you can go in full guns blazing, but the stealth aspect of it was so satisfying, if you will. I did genuinely enjoy it because you do have a combo. You can use Nyx to help you out. Your little side character, companion. Well, you do the stealth attacks or takedowns and things like that. So I thought the stealth aspect hit home for me. I genuinely, truly enjoyed it. I mean, I love Metal Gear Solid. I love stealth games. I love having that ability to just cruise through, take out a whole army of 15, 20 guys guarding a base, and none of them know anything about it. So I think this one really hit for me, but I don't know what did it do for you?
So stealth's funny for me because too much of it and I start to get bored, and I'm like, dude, just let me run, let me shoot somebody. You know, like do I really need to crawl around so much in this game? And it's weird because I do enjoy stealth moments in a game for sure, because I like that suspense. I like that. It's almost like a puzzle, right? Yeah. Where it's like, if I can make my way through this room, there's 7 guards in this room. How do I make my way from point A to point B? And that's a puzzle in my mind.
Yep.
And I will say
that's
that
perfect. Yeah.
It worked really well in this game. Like that, I think, is the puzzles in this game, where it's like, how do I make it through this room? You touched on it. You can just blast your way through if you want. You know what I mean? Like, and honestly, I did that in a couple of places where, you know, the mission did not give the qualifier. So we should say that some missions you cannot get caught.
No,
like
you can't.
It's of utmost importance, and somebody can't know that you're doing what you're doing. And so if you get caught, it's game over at that point, right? Whereas other missions, it's kind of like, you might be better off if you just stealth, but if you want to just blast your way through this, I don't care.
Go,
as long
brother.
as long as I get what I need out of this, then you do how you want to do it. And so I did like that aspect. I did find myself, oddly enough, enjoying like 90% of the stealth in this game.
Yeah.
I will say, if I have to bring up a minor complaint, it's that the AI in this game is kind of dumb. Yep. You know, there's 2 dudes standing right next to each other. I sneak up behind one and I punch him in the back and knock him out. And that's like the dude that's standing 2 feet away is like, whoa, what's going on? What's that over there? And I'm kind of like, okay, like anybody would have seen this. But again, it's just kind of part of the puzzle. Like, I'm okay just kind of taking a step back and saying my job is to get through this. And this is just a puzzle. And so this was one piece of that puzzle. You know?
Yeah.
And so I actually really did enjoy the stealth gameplay in this game. I will say, if I never have to crawl through another like cramped little service tunnel again.
Oh my gosh, there's so many tunnels.
Dude, there's so many of those.
vents.
And it's like, it's kind of like, why, man? Like,
I want to know why. Okay, hold on. Why is the Empire just putting those everywhere?
Oh, dude, the Empire loves them some tunnels,
Empire
man.
loves them some vents. Like tunnels, that is just full access to anyone. Dude. You just go up and you just get right in.
Tunnel in the Death Star leads straight to the energy core? Yeah, sure,
Not
man.
a big deal.
Yeah, tunnel around this thing so people can crawl through it and sneak their way around? Why not?
Aesthetics, baby. We need it. We just like the look.
Dude, so many tunnels in this game. So there were a few times where I was like, dude, really? Like another tunnel? Like, I don't know what this is adding to the gameplay at this point. But I did actually find the stealth to be kind of fun. There were 1 or 2 times where if you failed, like I did fail a stealth, I got caught, and it puts you kind of far back. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, dang, man, like that's kind of harsh. Like I got to make my way through these 3 rooms all over again kind of thing. That's actually something they corrected in a patch where people were complaining about the stealth, and they listened and they said, okay, well, we'll make like more checkpoints for the stealth option in this game. But for me, the stealth was a benefit to the game itself. You just kind of have to take it with a grain of salt sometimes too. Yeah. Like this is not Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell. You were not needing to be a top secret espionage agent. You're just a scoundrel trying to make your way through and you know, heist something from the Empire or somebody else. So, but Ryan, even in the best of times, sometimes stealth fails. And when stealth fails, what's the next best thing, buddy?
We go blasting, baby.
We go blasting, baby. Pew, pew, pew. And so there is a good bit of combat in this game as well.
Yes.
Sometimes the mission is just, hey, go wreck some people, man. You know, these people need a lesson taught to them, and I need you to go do it. And you just go, okay, cool. So there is combat in this game. You do get different kinds of weapons. You get different kind of like you get grenades. I won't say different kinds of grenades. You get different types of blasters or modes for your blaster. I
Yes.
guess is the best way to put it. You can melee in this game. So if you want to just straight up punch somebody in the face, you can do that too. So let's talk about the combat a little bit. How did you feel about combat as a whole?
I thought it was pretty good, and I will say, speaking of melee, Kay must have a good right hook.
Dude.
You can knock out some stormtroopers with 1 or 2 punches, and with their helmets on, and I'm like, dang, man, she's been training or something, I don't know what she's on, but yeah, I thought the combat was. It was just right. We talk about the stealth. I know going through the world as you go in between, you get these different command posts that you can find that I'm sure you're aware of, where you see Imperial, stormtroopers and stuff. There's one at the top of the tower, a few around. Sometimes I would sneak around and see if I could get through them all without letting them know. And then other ones, like we said, I'd go in blasting. And the one thing that I liked is when you picked up, you just got your little hand blaster. It's like Han Solo, got a little pistol. You can upgrade it. You can change the shot method on bursts or more powerful shots. You can charge up shots, stuff like that. But when you get these other rifles that you can pick up, they have some power to them, which I really, really liked. I thought it was cool to see the difference between just like, hey, this is a pistol. You're going to take a little more shots between the actual rifles you can pick up. The, what is it, A130 or whatever.
Yeah, the A3000.
Or something like that. Yeah, there was all kinds, that you could pick up. And when you get one of those, I'm like, okay, I'd run back, get around behind a corner. I'm like, I'm taking all these fools out right now. And you just start shooting away. So I thought the combat was very enjoyable. If you got discovered, you weren't really like, oh man, now I have to fight. I'd go punch a few dudes in the face, get out my gun, start shooting. And then one thing that I loved was you can overcharge your blaster. So if you shoot too much, burns out, it's got to recharge and cool off. But it turned into a mini game to where I played on controller. I'm sure you played on keyboard. It has like this little kind of meter on the side of
an active reload.
An active reload
right,
to where, all right, I hit RB within this kind of spot, boom, I'm back in business. I can start shooting again. Otherwise, kind of like a gun jam. Your gun jams up, you got to wait an extra few seconds. So I thought it was just fun. I wasn't worried about jamming up or going over too far because I'd hit that reload and then keep blasting away. So I really did enjoy the combat throughout the game. I enjoyed seeing how many guys I could take on. Sometimes I would just go and just kind of try to destroy an area to see what I could do, especially with, like we talked about, and we're going to get into the different syndicates and the different areas. You'll get some that there's a lot of guys and you're like, oh crap, I gotta, and you're not invincible. You're not a bullet sponge. So your health goes down pretty quick taking blaster rounds. So there was just a lot to the combat, a lot of ways to get through and fight the enemies, and I enjoyed pretty much all of it.
Yeah, I will say I think combat is probably the worst part of this game, in my opinion. I it's weird because
I can see it.
It's fun having a blaster rifle.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like I still want to pew pew people, and I'm like, ooh, it's got the Star Wars sound. You can put your gun to stun, so you can even do like like they stun Princess Leia in the movie, where it's like setting to stun, right? And it's like, So it's like, I like that there were those options to it. I like that you could get like a grenade that you fight different kinds of enemies where some of them might have shields or some are tankier than others, and you kind of had to deal with that. You are not a Jedi, so you do die quickly if you do get into a fight.
Yeah.
I just think overall, to me, the combat was probably I will say the least developed aspect of the game. It wasn't unenjoyable by any means. Like anytime a fight broke out, I definitely didn't hate it like you said, but I just found it to be very simple.
I would, dude, I was just going to say, I know you and I know me, and I know that this is like, because to me, I love a challenge. I love things that are very hard and I have to, kind of try to beat it. But I just enjoy like the process a lot more than like you want that challenge. You want to battle these guys and it to be a big, hard, how am I going to get through them all? This is going to be crazy. And this isn't that type of game.
It's not. No.
So I totally get that from your aspect. For me, I loved it. I liked the combat. I think it hit, but I can totally see why for you or like Elden Ring players or people that really love that type of battle combat kind of setting scenario, why it wouldn't be as great. Not to say that it wasn't still enjoyable, but it wouldn't be one of the markers that kind of hit for you.
It's weird because I never minded the combat, but I never got excited about the combat either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it wasn't like, oh, the combat in this game sucks. It's such a drag. Like, it's really bringing this game down. But at the same time, I would not say that for me, the combat enhanced the game in any way. In that regard. So listen, we need to cover a few more things. We've got to talk about Nixon. We've got to talk about some of the faction stuff in this game. So we're going to take a very quick break and then we'll be right back to talk about some of that.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouthwatering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com right now and get up to 45% off select styles. Rules and restrictions may apply.
All right, Ryan, let's talk about the one of the main parts of this game, and that is the fact that you are a scoundrel. You are trying to make a name for yourself, and as somebody that commits crime and is good at it, you need to work for the people that want you to commit crimes, and that's the different crime syndicates in this game. There's a few of them. You can definitely work for the Hutts. You can work for those sneaky, stealthy Crimson Dawns. You can work for the thuggish Pike Syndicate. And maybe there's another one, but again, we're not going to get into any spoilers, but there may be another syndicate out there that you can work for at some point as well. But this is a large part of this game. This is where if they really tried to kind of home in on this and say, hey, if you want to work for the Hutts, guess what? You're probably going to wind up ticking off the Crimson Dawn because all these crime syndicates are trying to kind of carve out their own territory, their own space, and all these other crime syndicates are encroaching on that. And so they kind of war with each other, but they have to kind of do it subtly, right? You can't just declare war on the Hutts. That's not a good idea. And so they will use you to be their agent, do things, steal from that other syndicate, don't get caught, sabotage this guy, go blackmail this guy and steal this data pad that maybe has some incriminating evidence on him. And this is a big portion of the game. In the cities in this game, there are different syndicate areas where if you are not in good standing with them, it's off limits.
You can't come in here.
Yeah. That's basically what they say is, hey, you're not allowed in here. And then all of a sudden you get in good standing and they're like, okay, you can pass. And I'm like, well, I can just walk around now, and you get special vendors that the syndicates might have. So there are definitely advantages to working your way up one of the syndicates or, being careful about ticking off one of the syndicates. So how did you feel about this part of the game? Like, did you enjoy it? Was it just I know they really tried to make this something, but it didn't really work for me. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I liked it, dude. I personally, I love when you have factions, syndicates, gangs, like whatever relations you have. I do thoroughly enjoy that in a video game. I love what missions are they going to offer me? Oh, well, what are they going to offer me? Who wants my love, baby? Come on, who's going to give me the most? Where's my perks? What do I get from this? Who's going to get my abilities? So I love the option to try to gain the reputation with different types of crews and whatnot. So to me, this was something that was super neat. It was something that it played out well within the game. It gave you perks or drawbacks depending on what you did. So there was always a consequence, be it good or bad, that I think adds just another layer. You don't want to have too much to a game to where, nobody can understand it. There's just too much to get to. There's too much to go through. But I think this was one of those things where it just added more, again, I say depth to it. That's another, you can work on your syndicate reputations. You can work on your stuff so that you can upgrade more to go play that next mission, to go make it easier. So to me, I love these types of things within video games, and I think they did a good job on this one as well.
Yeah, I will say I couldn't really seem to get into the syndicate thing, right? Like, honestly, and maybe that's just me, because like if I'm playing a game that has morality, I have a real hard time just being a jerk. I feel guilty. I'm like, oh, I know they're not people, but it's just not my personality, to just go around kicking everybody in the face and stuff like that. And I know this is a big part of the game, and there is something insanely cool about working for Jabba the Hutt and meeting Jabba the Hutt in this game, and then having to do a mission for Jabba the Hutt, Exactly. And so it's like, but then it's like, there's the Crimson Dawn, and it's like, oh, I kind of want to play this game like from a stealth aspect, and the Crimson Dawn are stealthy, right? They're like your spies, and you're kind of behind the shadows type people. And so I was like, ooh, maybe I want to play with the Crimson Dawn. And I definitely started down that path. But I think what put me off was like, at one point, I got caught walking around in an area that I shouldn't have been in. And they caught me and they kicked me out, but it was like trespassing in big red letters across the thing. And then I was like, oh, oops. Okay. But then my freaking standing with that faction went down. And I was like, dude, come on, man. I didn't even know I wasn't supposed to be in there, And so it's like, I took this hit to this faction, and then I got mad about it, and I was like, what the heck, man? Like, this is stupid, And then it's like, well, Jabba has a job for you. Like, the Hutts need your assistance. And I'm like, cool, I'll go work for Jabba. Yeah. Screw you, Crimson Dawn, like giving me a bad reputation because I accidentally trespassed in your area. And then it's like, so I do a job for Jabba. And then it's like, oh, dude, I'm favorable with the Hutts now. And I'm like, oh, heck yeah, I get to go talk to this special vendor and all that. And then I do this other mission where it's like, oh, well, you have to make a choice. Are you going to betray this faction, or are you going to help this faction out? And then I was like, oh, I guess I'm going to, I guess I'm going to help them, because it seemed like the right thing to do at the time. So I helped them, and then guess what? It's like, you're standing with the Hutts is now in the crapper. And then I'm like, no, I was favorable with them. And it's like,
you don't mess with Jabba, man.
Dude, so like sometimes I didn't even know like that I was like messing up one faction versus the other. So for me,
no, I get that. Yeah, I get that.
For me, as my personality, and very particular to me, I just kind of wrote the faction system off at that point, if that makes sense, because it was kind of like, I don't want to betray this person. This is the mission I'm on. I have the chance to betray them, or I can give them the data that they need. And it's like, oh, well, I'm going to give you the data you need. But by doing that, I completely obliterate this other faction standing that I was working on. And then it all just got jumbled up to me. And I just kind of went, forget it all, man. I know there's people that love that in the game, and they're like, dude, I want to spend all my time trying to max out each faction in the game, which I know you can do. So if that's kind of your thing, you can definitely work for that. I just kind of got lost on that, and I just kind of stopped caring about it. And I know that's probably a crime to some people, but it just didn't really do it for me.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's fair. Like I, with like Skyrim, I went through and I did like all the missions for, the Dark Brotherhood. Then I went through the Thieves Guild. Then I went through all the wizarding missions. Like I did everything, because I love kind of almost getting in with the group, and then you're part of it. You do all the missions for them, and then, well, see ya. You go off to the next one. Yeah. So I don't mind it as much. And then also, I tend to be, I'm kind of a yes man in person in the real world. And so I do kind of like to be an a-hole in video games. And I like to just, oh yeah, you don't like me? Too bad. Boom, and smack them around. So I enjoy it. I get why people would not like it. I can see why doing this mission for this faction, and then it messes up this other one, and you're like, oh, come on, man, now you can't go over there, and you get lost and accidentally walk into it, and then it goes down even more. So I totally see how that can kind of turn somebody off to that part of it.
Yeah, and I get that it's a minor thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like me getting trespassed is probably not important in the grand scheme of things, but it was more just I felt like I was messing things up unintentionally sometimes.
Yeah,
and when
sure.
I have a reputation that's associated with that, it was easier for me to just be like, screw all this, man.
Forget it then.
Yeah,
I won't
forget
do it at all.
I'm my own person. I'm
doing it at all.
K-Vest, man. I don't need you guys. Turns out you might actually need them. So,
Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am?
all right, Ryan, we're running out of time here. We have to talk about Nyx. Nyx is your cute little creature companion in this game. He's kind of your cheat code in a way for this game. Nyx is a Merqual. I'd never seen one of these before in Star Wars, but that's what he is. He is your constant companion in this game. He is the guy that you can send to go steal things, to go push buttons and all that stuff. Did you like Nyx? Did he add to the game for you? Give me a quick rundown on what you think about Nyx.
I had a very weird relationship, I guess you would say, with Nyx, to where I would totally forget that I even had a Nyx a lot of the time.
Yep.
And then sometimes I would remember because I'd see the little icon. So for the people listening, when you play the game, there'll be like this kind of light blue icon with like a head. And then that's like a Nyx
Can do
ability
something.
that you could do something. So you can either flip the switch or go through their grade or get this item or even steal. You could steal from the stormtroopers, which was one thing that I thought was not super useful, but I thought it was neat, a little kind of a neat fold in there as well. But there's just, I don't know. I thought it was cool when you used it, but it was also something that I didn't really find myself being drawn to, except for when I'm running around and it was one of those times I forgot I had Nyx and I'm looking, I'm like, how do I get through here? I keep running around. There's an energy shield barrier. I got a blaster in the center of the room. I got to get up to this. I was like, I know I have to get up there. How the heck do I do it? I'm trying to jump from here to there, crawl around, move wall. Like I'm going all over the place. And then I happen to just go behind a spot to stop for a second because the blaster's shooting at me. And then I see the little icon behind the energy barrier. I'm like, oh, dang it. I forgot. So you can send Nyx in there to open the wall for you. And then you can get through to get where you need to go. So at those points, I kind of got annoyed. Like, okay, I mean, I should have remembered, but also this is kind of annoying to have to use this character, but that should be an asset, but I don't really think about it. And that's probably more a me thing, used to playing Uncharted or other things where you don't have that. But it was cool. I thought I wouldn't say that I would like it better without Nyx, but also there was times where it was a little frustrating because I couldn't figure it out. And again, that's probably more of a me thing, but it was. I'm indifferent on Nyx.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nyx.
How dare
Sorry,
you?
I don't want to hurt your feelings,
you,
Nyx.
Ryan. I'm kind of with you in a sense that, like, I kind of alluded to it. To me, Nyx was a cheat code. Nyx was a way to simplify the game.
Yeah.
To me, where it's like, oh, it's hard to make your way through this area. There's too many Imperials around. Just send Nyx to distract one of them. Boom.
Yeah.
The guy's distracted. Sneak up, punch him in the back, move on, right?
Or blow up those barrels over on the other side, you know?
Yeah, and so it was kind of like Nyx almost just trivialized the game in a lot of ways. And so I was kind of like, well, I don't have to use Nyx for this, you know? And so I found that I wasn't. I will say where Nyx really came into play was in some of, like you mentioned, they're not really puzzles, but they're like puzzle lights where it's like you're climbing on this thing. You have to send Nyx over to like push a button so that this turbo lift will lower or actually raise up so that you can then jump on the top of the turbo lift, then send Nyx to go push the button so the lift lowers, and then that way you can kind of progress through the level. That part of Nyx I thought was kind of clever because it's almost like I'm playing with a friend that is helping me solve these puzzles. But for the most part, for me, Nyx was just a cheat code. You know, you're having too hard of a time sneaking through this area, use Nyx more. Oh, okay, well, now they're distracted, or he blows up a barrel and kills one of them, and then, you know, maybe that alerts them, but they don't know who they're looking for. and stuff like that. So I will say one of my favorite parts of the entire game was when you eat at one of the food shops and you get the food for Nix, and you have to do the little. It's like a little that date. Mini game. You're like on a date with Nix, and it's the cutest thing ever, man. And you're just bonding. And then after that, I was like, I freaking love you, Nix. You're the coolest guy ever. And then that
he tries to get that ice block early, and then it's like, no, you gotta wait, and then it's
stuck to it. I know, and I was like, oh no, Nix, what have you done? But
that does make you bond. That does make you bond with them.
It really does. So they did a good part there. So Nix is there if you need him. You need him in a few parts of the game, but I found that it just was almost like a cheat code. I'm just going to use that term again.
No, that's fair. I will say too, like when you talked about like the two guys, two troopers standing there, and you can just kind of hit the other one. I would do it just for my own personal satisfaction, where I would send Nix to the far one to distract the far one or attack the far one, and then I could take the closer one and knock him out and then get the second one, and I'm like, just that satisfaction of like, I got them both type thing. But like we said, it was cute, it was there, but
he's there for cute factor, and I know you can use him, but this game would probably not be much different if Nix wasn't there and you just had to do this stuff yourself kind of thing too.
For sure.
So, all right, Ryan. Graphics in this game, they're fine. I think they did a good job of capturing the Star Wars universe. So we'll go back to the setting part and say the setting was awesome. I felt like there were a time or two where I was like, K looks really muddy compared to the rest of it. And I remember actually Googling, like, how do I make the graphics better? But, they're not cutting edge graphics, but they're fine, in my opinion. Yeah. Any different thought there?
No, I thought it was good. I did think they did a really good job. I know one of my big concerns was the open world aspect of it. I think when you drive through those areas with
I loved driving my speeder bike around.
Yeah,
we didn't touch on that, but I loved just riding my speeder bike around.
I would just circle around once you upgrade and use the boost and you're just ramping. I'm like, I'm going to hit that 85, meter gap thing and try to upgrade my speeder even more to get the jump. And so I thought the open world environment, I do think they did a good job, not just making it bland and plain. The kind of flowing grass with the wind, the buildings. I think they did a good job with that. Not too much crazy graphically as far as how the amazing look of everything, but I do think there was depth to it, depth in the city, depth in the world. But yeah, it was nothing to write home about, but I think they did a good job.
Yeah, they're fine. I'm a graphics snob. These graphics were fine for what the game needed to be. I wasn't blown away, but I also wasn't distracted by them or going like, come on, these could have been better. All right, Ryan. Audio, it sounds like Star Wars. They did a good job with the blaster sounds and stuff like that. The voice acting was good. There's a good bit of that in the game. I thought it was fine. Nothing to write home about either in that regard. Not distracting. Didn't take away anything, in my opinion, either. So,
yeah.
Agreed. Okay. We've kind of covered the game. We've covered different aspects of the game. This is the part where what did you think, Ryan? Did you like Star Wars? Were you impressed? Were you disappointed? Like, what do you think, man?
I thought it was a really good game. I think that this one hit those markers for me. I love action RPGs. I love the Star Wars universe. Meld them together. Like Disratory said, Uncharted with Star Wars, and I think this was pretty dang close to that. I feel like there could have been some things that they did different. I feel like they could have done a little bit more in some aspects, but I think overall, I think they did a really good job, and I think this is good for Ubisoft to show, okay, we know we suck. Maybe they don't know we suck. They suck, but they should know they suck. And I think this is a step in the right direction to where maybe they can kind of really take more of these kind of games on that. I mean, it's like we said, like these fans, like they're super fans of Star Wars and they're going to hold you to it. And like, you better do a dang good job if you're going to make a game from a world, a universe that is this beloved. And I think they did their due diligence. I think they did a good job, and I think that it held true to what they wanted it to be. And so I'm pretty stoked. I'm glad we got to play it. I'm glad Disratory, forced us, and I'm doing quotes for anyone that can't see me, which is everybody. Yeah. But I'm glad we were forced to play this game, and I think it's a really solid game and a really solid Star Wars game.
I really didn't know what to expect going into this game. And I will say that I was one of those gamers that was kind of put off by the negative reviews and the people saying, oh, this game's, there's no heart to it. K-Vess is not a fun protagonist and there's no lightsabers and all that stuff and blah, blah, blah. When I got to playing it, I even was kind of being skeptical to myself and saying like, oh, this combat's not really that in depth. And oh, the stealth isn't really that in depth. And oh, Nyx is cute, but I don't really need to use Nyx a whole lot and all that. And so I was definitely trying to do the like, what am I critical of? But there's something about a recipe when you have all these ingredients and by themselves, those ingredients aren't that great. You know what I mean? Yeah. But when you put all these ingredients together, something better happens, and it's like, I like sugar. I don't like flour, but when you put sugar and flour together, I get cookies all of a sudden, And so it's one of those things where it's like, in this game, I got cookies, dude. Like none of it really was inspiring to me, and it's funny because I know like Disratory was really gushing over this game and saying, oh my goodness, dude, this might be one of the best games I've played all year. And I kind of went, yeah, I don't know if I see that, dude, but then I was like, but this game's pretty good, man.
This is pretty fun, man.
I'm having fun. And I gotta say, to be fair, while we were playing this game, I am playing Overwatch with my daughter, which I love those times playing that with her. I'm playing Throne and Liberty, which I wanted to play, with some buddies and check that game out. And I was still dabbling in God of War Ragnarok a little bit as well as like, that's my me game,
Yeah.
And so I'm playing Star Wars Outlaws in the midst of all these other games. And every time I was like, I need to play Star Wars Outlaws, I didn't mind it one bit. You know what I mean? I never found myself like dreading playing this game or any of that stuff. And while I'm playing it, I'm realizing like, dude, I'm having fun, man. I'm sneaking into these Imperial bases. I'm getting out alive. I'm like, I'm betraying this guy and I'm working for that faction and I'm upgrading. We didn't even talk about the fact that there's upgrades for almost every system in this game. You can upgrade your spaceship. You can upgrade your speeder. You can upgrade your blaster. You can upgrade your gear. So it had those like kind of RPG light elements that I really liked that really helped string me along. And so in my mind, this game is way better than what people gave it credit for. And that is like my official, like, people want to know. I'm not going to call this a game of the year because I don't think that it is necessarily. But when we talked about, and we said this from the very beginning, addressing this kind of controversy over the critic reviews and the gamer reviews and people that have played it and people that haven't, and where is this game actually at? This game is way better than I think it gets credit for, in my opinion.
Agreed.
So I'm a little baffled by the critic response, and
It's
know
weird.
me, dude. I'm usually very critical. I have no problem saying I think this part of this game sucks or this game sucks as a whole and stuff like that. And while I can see that this game definitely has weak spots to it, it just works, dude. And maybe that's because we're Star Wars nerds.
Maybe, but who isn't? Like, how many people do you talk to that say, "Oh, I hate Star Wars. I don't like Star Wars at all." Like, everybody has some sort of affinity most of the time for Star Wars, and even if you like it just a little, I don't see how you can't love just being in this world. Being a part of it, being one with this just kind of dark, gritty little part of this town, and then you go up to the open, beautiful plains, and you're seeing wind farmers doing this stuff, and there's just so much to behold in this game that I think that they did so well on. I don't see how all the controversy happened, but I don't know. Maybe that's, again, like you said, that they were just Star Wars nerds.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I'm critical of games. I don't mind saying that, but this game, I found very little to be critical of in that regard. Is it game of the year? In my opinion, it's not. I don't think it'll even get nominated for game of the year. Is it an absolutely enjoyable, well-rounded, fun video game that's probably worth the money? For me, the answer is resoundingly yes, dude.
Yes.
You know,
Agreed.
I mean,
Yeah.
I find it hard to believe that somebody could play this game and go, this game sucks. Like,
Exactly.
I can't fathom that, to be honest with you.
I agree 100%. Yeah, I don't see any way where someone could put the time in, put 5, 10, 15 hours, whatever you want. I think it's 25, 30 to beat it, maybe 40, but depending on how much you want to do, obviously.
Yeah.
But I don't see how you can put that time in, explore the world, and not just love what you see and love what you're doing in the game.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it's a thoroughly enjoyable video game that I think is worth your time and money to dive into. I don't think I'm going to be talking about Star Wars Outlaws 2 years from now by any means, but is there worse ways to spend $60 on a video game? Like, absolutely, yeah, there are. I do think this game is worth the price.
What would you? I think we can all agree, Fallen Order was better than Survivor.
Yes, I agree 100%.
Okay. So how would you compare it to Fallen Order?
Oh man. It's not as good as Fallen Order in my opinion. Like,
I would agree.
Fallen Order was way better than it had any right to be.
Oh,
but
dude, it was so good.
I will say that this game is a very good, enjoyable Star Wars game. I don't think
it's like the other side.
You know what? I'll say this. I think it's better than Jedi Survivor.
Okay. I can honestly, I think I would agree.
I mean, if that helps quantify it for people. Now, I will say that we were not the biggest fans of Jedi Survivor. If we take a step back and we say, is this a good video game? Jedi Survivor is a very good video game. Was it a little disappointing and a little bit kind of janky at release and stuff like that and came with a lot of issues? Yes, it was. That detracted from that. But I will say that from a Star Wars game standpoint, I think Star Wars Outlaws holds its own against Jedi Survivor.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think the same thing. I think they did just such a good job with this game.
Yeah. All right, Ryan, we're going to go to the leaderboard here in just a second, but you know what? We promised a free game to somebody, Ryan.
We did.
And we are going to give away a free game. Now, before we started recording, we randomized our members in our Discord server, and Ryan, we randomly picked a winner, and why don't you announce who the winner is?
And the winner is Super Mario 94.
Whoa, congratulations, Super Mario 94.
Yeah.
Now, here's the catch. You got to let us know that you won, because we said you have to listen to this episode and then we'll give the game away. So Super Mario 94, I know you're on our Discord server. You've been chatting away. We love having you there. But you got to say, hey, Josh, Ryan, I can't believe I won or whatever. But you got to let us know that you heard that you won. And then we will work out getting your game copy to you on your platform of choice on that one. All right, Ryan.
That's what we do.
We're
gaming for the people, man.
We are.
We're gaming for the people.
Yeah. And hopefully after this episode, he's more excited to play this game now, too. All right, Ryan, we've gone way too long.
He's going to have a copy.
Yeah, he better. Ryan, let's go to the leaderboard. I know where I have this game rated. I'm just going to throw it out there. I think this game is quite good. I don't think it's in the range of being like absolutely spectacular, memorable for years to come kind of thing, but it's a very worthwhile video game in my opinion. I'm going to put this at an 8.3, which is going to put it right in the same category as Grand Theft Auto Online and Call of Duty Warzone for me, which is high praise, dude. I mean, yeah, that's no slouch of a game. Again, I would recommend this game to people. It's not without its flaws and stuff like that, but I think this game is better than a lot of people gave it credit for. And for me, it's an 8.3.
And that's just above. You got Jedi Survivor at 8.0. So yeah,
there you go. I said I think
right
it's
above.
better than that game, so that follows.
I'm not gonna lie, I had to look it up.
I'm glad
to make
that
sure
didn't
that
contradict myself there.
I was like, oh man, I said it's a lot better. I better go look up what I gave it.
I did not even know where I had Survivor rated, so I'm glad that that was on point.
I got you, bud. I'm thinking ahead. So I'm gonna do also. I really did genuinely enjoy this game. I'm an action RPG guy. I love worlds that I can explore. I love having the option to go around and do all kinds of different things that I want to do. I don't want to be just stuck on this one linear path. I like to have the option to go on a side path and explore and see what I can kind of trouble I can get into, I guess, as a scoundrel for sure. I'm going to go a little higher. I'm going to give this thing an 8.8.
Ooh,
I think that
nice.
for me personally, it's all those markers that I want to hit. The only one that held it back is it wasn't bad, but I didn't feel just drawn into the story.
Yeah.
Like some other games, you know. If it was a story that really hit, that made me just sucked in, and I loved the characters, and I felt a really emotional connection to them, it would have been higher. But I think overall, with the gameplay, the world, the setting, everything that we have, I think 8.8 is an awesome score. I would highly recommend this to anyone. If you even love Star Wars a little bit,
oh yeah,
get this game.
Oh yeah,
for sure. Just to explore the world. You will love it. I guarantee it.
Dude, I will say, if you are a fan of Star Wars, like, there were so many moments where I was just like, okay, that's really cool. Like, you go to Tatooine.
Exactly, dude.
You go to Tatooine, and you have to go visit Jabba's palace. And guess what? It's freaking Jabba's palace, dude.
It's Jabba's palace.
Yeah, I mean, you go up to the door, the little eye thing pops out. You have to talk to it and everything. I mean, there were just so many of those cool moments as a Star Wars fan to go like, okay, they did it. You know, in that regard. So 8.8 on your leaderboard puts this dead equal with Subnautica, which is one of my favorite games, and Halo Infinite, which is a very good game as well. So yeah, high praise from you there as well. All right, Ryan, man, we went long, so I'm just going to go ahead and call this the end of this episode. We hope you enjoyed this. We hope that this kind of answers the question for those of you that were on the fence or wanted to know more about Star Wars Outlaws. A huge heartfelt thank you to Disratory. Dude, we love having you as part of the community. You're awesome to talk to. You're an awesome member of the community. Thank you for your support of this podcast as well. It really does mean a lot to us, and honestly, everybody else out there, because you've been supporting the show for quite a while now, and it's not lost on us that you go out of your way to do that. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to leave us a 5-star review. Remember to follow the podcast as well on your podcast app. It's usually either a follow button or a plus button or something like that. If you want to go the extra mile like Disratory, you can support the podcast over at multiplayersquad.com. You get cool perks like early access, ad-free episodes, Discord perks, and things like that as well. So that's it. Ryan, I'm really excited about this next game that we're playing. We are covering a spooky game for Halloween.
Spooky season is here.
Dude, we played one night of this game, and I am comfortable saying that this might be the most bananas game I have ever played in my life, dude.
Insane.
We are going to cover the Outlast Trials, which I've had my eye on for a while now.
Yes.
And so that is the game that we're going to cover for our spooky season, scary game. That's going to be a doozy, dude. You do not want to miss that episode because, like I said, this might be the most crazy game I've ever seen.
Wait, we have to play more?
Oh, we got to play more, buddy. All right. So we'll be back in 2 weeks with that episode for the Outlast Trials. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, happy gaming.
See ya.